I've never been good at pretending that my life was simple. Even when I was younger, people would say I had those eyes, the type that look like they're always thinking about something heavier than what's happening around them. And maybe that's why, for years, I avoided looking into mirrors. Every time I caught my reflection, I felt like I could see the truth I'd buried, 10 whole years of silence pressing against the inside of my chest. My name is Yohani, and before anything else, you should know one thing: I didn't stay quiet because I wanted to. I stayed quiet because I believed it was the only way to protect the people I loved. And now that I'm finally ready to speak, it feels like my voice is trying to claw its way out of a decade of darkness. Sometimes, when I start remembering everything that happened, I still get this strange feeling in my hands, as if my body wants to warn me I shouldn't open those doors again. But I have to. Not just for myself, but because I spent too long letting the wrong people shape the story of my life. The truth began unraveling the day I met Elena, but to understand why she mattered so much, I need to go back to where the silence started. I was 21 when the first secret was locked inside me. Back then, I still believed I could outrun chaos if I kept my head down. I had this habit of going for late-night walks in my small hometown: quiet streets, empty sidewalks, the kind of silence that makes you feel like the sky is listening. I guess that's why I noticed her that night. She didn't belong to the quiet. Clara. Her name still lands in my mind like a whisper I can't forget. She was slumped against the side of a gray Toyota, her arms wrapped around her knees, crying in a way that didn't sound like heartbreak, it sounded like terror. The type that makes you want to look away, but also forces you to step closer. I didn't know her well, but everyone did, in some way. She was the kind of person people liked to gossip about: beautiful, sharp-tongued, unpredictable. The kind of girl who never learned how to be small. "Are you okay?" I asked her, already knowing the answer. When she lifted her face, I knew I'd just walked into something that wouldn't let me go. "Please," she whispered. "Don't let him find me." I didn't know who him was. But I could guess. Her boyfriend, Daniel. He was older than us, charismatic in that way dangerous people often are. Always smiling, always too calm, always too ready to make a scene when things didn't go his way. I had seen him explode once in the town's parking lot just because someone bumped into him. I should have walked away. I should have pretended I didn't hear Clara's fear shaking in her voice. But I didn't. Instead, I opened the door to a story that would ruin my youth. Clara begged me not to tell anyone where she was. Not even her family. Especially not them. "They'll blame me," she said. "They always do." She wasn't wrong. Her family had a reputation for keeping problems inside, locked up tight, polished on the surface but poisoned at the roots. They cared about perfection more than they cared about her. So I let her stay with me that night. And I know what you're thinking: I should have called the police, or told her parents, or done anything other than what I actually did. And I've replayed that night in my head hundreds of times. But fear changes people. And Clara wasn't just afraid, she was shattered. The next morning, she made me promise one thing. Never tell anyone I was here. I should have said no. But I didn't. And that was the first lie that chained everything else together. A few days later, Clara was gone. Not missing, gone. Just gone. She left town with Daniel. People said everything was fine, that they had patched things up, that she wanted a fresh start. But I remembered the way she cried in my apartment, how her hands trembled so much she couldn't hold the glass of water I gave her. And I knew nothing was fine. I tried to reach out to her, but the number she used that night was disconnected. The next weeks passed with a kind of stillness that didn't feel real. People talked about her with the distracted tone of someone discussing a weather forecast. And yet, inside me, I felt this pressure building, like I was holding a secret that didn't belong to me. 3 months later, we found out she had died. Her family said it was an accident. A tragic, unexpected, these things happen, kind of situation. They didn't want questions. They didn't want noise. They wanted the perfect narrative, one that didn't stain their reputation. But rumors spread anyway. Some said she had been drinking. Others said she and Daniel were fighting before she fell. No one knew for sure. Or maybe they did, and they pretended otherwise. In small towns, people bury the truth faster than they bury the dead. I was at her funeral, standing at the back, when Daniel approached me. He placed a hand on my shoulder and leaned in so close I could smell the cologne he always wore. "She told me everything," he murmured. I froze. Everything? What did he mean? Before I could ask, he stepped back and smiled, not the kind of smile you give a friend, but the kind predators give to prey. "She said you helped her. That you kept her secret. Good man." I felt sick. He walked away, but I had the sense I wasn't free from him. Not even a little. Over the next weeks, strange things started happening. Anonymous messages. Notes on my door. Whispers behind me at the grocery store. It felt like Daniel wanted me to know I was being watched. That I hadn't been as invisible as I thought. One night, my mother found a letter shoved under our front door. There was only one sentence inside. "Silence keeps you alive." She panicked. I lied. I told her it was just a prank from some kids. But inside, I knew exactly where it came from. That was when the real fear began. The kind that wraps around your ribs and squeezes every time you breathe. I stopped sleeping. I stopped talking to people. I even considered leaving town. But my mother was sick back then, and I couldn't put more weight on her shoulders. So I stayed quiet. For 10 years. But silence does something to you. It carves pieces out of your identity. It makes you smaller, fragmented, guilty, even when you're not. During those years, I built my life around routines. Safe conversations, safe friendships, safe answers whenever someone mentioned Clara. I trained myself to avoid the places she used to go, to pretend I barely knew her, to act like I wasn't carrying her last night alive inside my head. But everything changed the day I met Elena. She came into my life like a gust of wind strong enough to move the debris I had spent a decade stacking around me. I met her at the library where I worked. She was there researching a social psychology thesis about patterns of silence in small communities. And when she asked if I had ever witnessed something like that, something inside me cracked. I don't know why she made me feel safe. Maybe it was her voice, soft but steady. Maybe it was her eyes, dark and kind, but sharp like she could see through the lies I told myself. Or maybe it was the way she didn't rush me. She listened the way no one ever had. I didn't tell her the full truth. Not then. I said I once knew someone who needed help and didn't get it. She watched me in silence, and I hated how my throat tightened as if the truth was trying to escape me. "You don't have to hide your story," she said. But she had no idea. Still, she stayed close. She came back every week, sometimes for research, sometimes just to say hi. And little by little, she became a piece of my life. A piece I didn't know I needed. But the past isn't something you can outrun. Not forever. It was late September when I saw him again. Daniel. 10 years older, but still with that same calm, predatory smile. He walked into the library like he owned the place. When he spotted me, he tilted his head as if discovering an old toy he'd forgotten about. "Yehani," he said, dragging my name out like a threat. "Long time." My stomach dropped. My hands went cold. I felt 21 again, scared, powerless, trapped. He leaned against the counter, pretending he was just stopping by to say hello. "I heard you still keep to yourself," he said. "Smart. People who talk too much get hurt." His words were cotton-wrapped knives. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Then he tapped his fingers on the desk, slow and deliberate. "You and I understand each other," he continued. Some truths don't belong out in the open. Some things should stay buried. He left, but the fear stayed. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Clara's voice in my head, her fear, her trembling hands, her desperate plea. Don't let him find me. And suddenly it hit me, the threat wasn't over. It had never ended. I had built my life around a secret that didn't protect anyone anymore. And then something else happened, something that pushed me over the edge of silence. Elena called me. Her voice was shaky. She said a man had approached her in the parking lot after leaving the library. He asked her questions about me, strange questions. Her age. Whether she lived alone. Whether we were close. I knew exactly who it was. The past had found me again. And this time, it wasn't just about me, it was about someone I cared about. That was the night I decided I wasn't going to be afraid anymore. Secrets rot. And mine had rotted long enough. But before I could tell Elena anything, something happened that threw my entire life off balance. She showed up at my apartment the next morning, eyes wide, hands trembling. "Yehani," she whispered, "I found something. About Clara." My heart stopped. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope, old, yellowed, and strangely familiar. "I think this was meant for you," she said. And as soon as I recognized the handwriting, the room began to spin. It was Clara's. The girl I had tried to protect. The girl I had buried in silence. The girl whose last night alive was tied to me in ways no one else knew. Inside the envelope was a note. A note that changed everything. A note that proved she didn't die by accident. A note that explained why I had been silent for 10 years. And why breaking that silence might finally set me free. But the truth has a price. And I had no idea how high it would be. When I touched the envelope, a cold shiver ran through me, as if the past itself had crawled out of its grave and placed its hand on my shoulder. I hadn't seen Clara's handwriting in 10 years, but it hit me instantly. The sharp curves, the rushed loops, it was her. Alive in ink. Frozen in a time I could never return to. Elena watched me closely, as if every micro-expression on my face might reveal the truth she sensed was buried deep inside me. "Where did you find this?" I whispered. She hesitated, biting her bottom lip before answering. "It was inside one of the psychology books. The same section I told you I've been researching, on patterns of forced silence." Her voice trembled slightly. "Someone must have placed it there recently. The pages around it weren't even dusty." Recently. That word punched the air out of my lungs. Clara had been dead for a decade. Her note shouldn't be showing up in a library book I shelved last week. Unless, someone wanted me to find it now. "Open it," Elena urged softly. My hands shook as I slid the paper out. The edges were worn, the middle creased like it had been folded and unfolded 1,000 times. And then, I saw her words. "If anything happens to me, it wasn't an accident. I know he won't let me go. Not alive. Please don't let him rewrite my story. Tell the truth when you can. I believe you'll know when the time is right." The final line made my throat close. "I'm scared you'll pay for helping me. I'm sorry." My vision blurred. My breath caught. I felt 21 again, my apartment, her shivering shoulders, her broken whisper asking for safety. Elena stepped closer. "Yehani, this means she knew she was in danger. She tried to warn someone. Maybe she tried to warn you." I swallowed hard. The truth felt jagged inside me. She spent her last night alive in my apartment, I confessed. She ran from him. She begged me not to tell anyone. I thought keeping her secret was protecting her. Then she left with Daniel and, 1 month later. "You thought staying silent kept you safe," Elena finished gently. "No," I whispered. I thought it kept my family safe. Someone threatened us after she died. Told me silence keeps you alive. Elena's face hardened. Daniel. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. What are you going to do now? She asked. I stared at Clara's letter. The words were faint. But they were loud enough to drown out 10 years of fear. I exhaled shakily. I think it's time to tell the truth. But telling the truth wasn't simple. Not when the man who created all this still walked free. Not when he had approached Elena just the night before. Not when fear still lived under my skin like a second heartbeat. I folded the letter carefully and placed it back inside the envelope. We need to be careful, I said. Daniel won't stay quiet if he knows we're digging into the past. Elena lifted her chin. Then we won't let him know. Not yet. For a moment, her courage steadied me. She wasn't just researching silence. She understood it. She had lived through her own battles, some she had only hinted at. I felt grateful she was beside me, even as guilt gnawed at me for putting her in the line of danger. We spent the next hours reconstructing the timeline, piecing together everything I remembered from that night, everything Clara told me, everything I'd ignored. Elena took notes, her handwriting quick and determined, while I paced the room, trying to push through the fog inside my mind. I need to know something, she finally said. That night, did she say he hurt her? I sighed. She didn't need to say it. She was terrified. And her arms, she tried to hide bruises. I didn't push her to talk. I didn't want to make it worse. You didn't make anything worse, Elena replied firmly. You gave her the only safe night she had. I didn't know if that was true. But her faith in me made it easier to breathe. As the hours passed, a storm of memories rushed back, Clara's trembling voice, her desperation, her silence. And beneath all of that, something else surfaced. Something I had buried even deeper than the truth. She had trusted me. That's what haunted me the most. She trusted me enough to spend her last night alive in my home. She trusted me to keep her safe. And in the end, I couldn't. At one point, Elena touched my arm gently. You're shaking. I hadn't even noticed. We should go to the police, she said. With the letter. With everything you know. And what? I asked bitterly. Tell them I stayed silent while a girl I cared about died. Tell them her family covered everything up. Tell them the man who abused her has been walking around free for 10 years because I was too terrified to speak. Elena looked at me for a long moment. Yes, she said simply. There was no judgment in her voice. No blame. Just truth. But before we could decide anything, there was a loud knock at the door. 3 sharp hits. Then silence. Elena and I looked at each other. My stomach dropped. She grabbed my wrist. Don't. But I already knew who it was. I moved slowly toward the door. The hallway on the other side was quiet, but something told me I wasn't imagining the faint sound of breathing. I pressed my eye to the peephole. Daniel stood there. His hands in his pockets. His head slightly tilted. That same calm, mocking smile. As if he knew exactly what we were doing. As if he had been waiting for this moment. I stepped back, heart pounding. What? Elena whispered. He's here, I breathed. Her face paled. The knock came again. This time lighter, almost playful. Yehani, Daniel called through the door, voice slow and deliberate. We need to talk. I didn't answer. He chuckled softly. Funny thing. I ran into someone yesterday. Sweet girl. Pretty. Curious. You two seem close. Elena's grip tightened on my wrist. My throat tightened. Everything inside me screamed for me not to open that door. But he continued speaking, calmly, like a serpent warming in the sun. "Let me in. Or we'll have a problem." We stayed frozen, holding our breath. After a long moment, the doorknob turned. He was testing it. I covered Elena's mouth gently, preventing her instinctive gasp from giving away anything. Then, silence. We waited a full minute before I dared look through the peephole again. He was gone. At least, that's what I thought. But when I took a second look, something glinted on the floor, right in front of the door. A small, folded paper. I opened the door just enough to grab it, then bolted it shut again. Elena watched as I unfolded it. The message inside made my blood freeze. "You're not the only one who can leave letters." I sat down hard. Elena knelt in front of me, placing her hands on mine. "This is escalating. We need help." "I know," I whispered. "But who can we trust?" Her eyes softened. "Me." I let out a shaky breath. For the first time in years, I didn't feel completely alone. That night, we didn't sleep. We planned. We talked through every possible step. And finally, we made a decision. We would go to the police the next morning, but not the local station. The town was too small. Too connected. Too corruptible. Instead, Elena suggested we go to a district office in the next city over, where her university had ties. Before we left, I asked her something that had been pressing on my mind. "Why are you helping me like this?" I asked. She hesitated. Then her voice softened. "Because silence ruins people. I won't let it ruin you too." We arrived at the police station at 10 a.m. sharp. The building felt cold the moment we stepped inside. A female detective named Officer Reeves listened to our story patiently. She took the note carefully, wearing gloves, examining the handwriting, the age of the paper, the creases. "When exactly did you find this?" she asked Elena. "Yesterday," she said. "It was placed in a psychology book. And you're certain no one at the library had access to it except staff?" I nodded. "Yes. And I shelved that book myself last week. The envelope wasn't there." Officer Reeves leaned back, thinking. "This is serious. But reopening a 10-year-old case, especially one that was ruled accidental, will require strong evidence." "We have more," Elena said. "Clara stayed at Yohanni's home the night before she disappeared. She was running from Daniel." The detective looked at me. "Is that true?" I swallowed. "Yes. Why didn't you come forward back then?" I stared at the table. "Because someone threatened my family. Told me to stay quiet." Officer Reeves nodded slowly. "It's not uncommon for abusers to silence witnesses. But it's still a difficult case to reopen without corroborating evidence. We'll need to be thorough." Then she asked something that made my stomach twist. "Are you in immediate danger?" Elena and I exchanged a look. "Yes," I said. Before we left the station, Officer Reeves gave me her card. "Don't go anywhere alone," she said firmly. "And don't confront him again. We'll dig." But we weren't prepared for how fast things would escalate. When we returned to my apartment, the door was slightly open. I froze. Elena whispered, "Yohanni, did you?" "No," I said. I locked it. Inside, the living room had been searched. Not destroyed. Not vandalized. Searched. Calmly. Methodically. As if someone was looking for something specific. And then we saw it. On the table. Another note. One line. "You shouldn't have gone to the police." Elena covered her mouth. My legs went weak. I grabbed the table to steady myself. "He knows," I whispered. "He knows everything." She shook her head, terrified. "We need to go. We need to leave now." But before we could move, my phone buzzed. A message. A video. When I tapped it open, the room seemed to fall silent. It was my mother. Sitting on a chair. Hands tied. Eyes filled with terror. Daniel's voice spoke behind the camera. "I told you not to talk." I nearly dropped the phone. Elena grabbed my hand. "We have to call the police. Now." But I was frozen. My chest was collapsing inward. My vision blurred. He had her. My mother. The person I stayed silent for in the first place. Daniel's voice echoed from the phone. "Come alone. Or she pays." The screen went black. Elena pressed her forehead to mine. "Yehani, listen to me. This is exactly what he wants. He wants you isolated. He wants control. You are not going there alone." "I have no choice," I choked out. "Yes, you do," she insisted, lifting my face so I looked into her eyes. "You are not facing him without help." She grabbed the detective's card and dialed immediately. Officer Reeves moved fast. Within an hour, she had traced the video upload route and sent a team to investigate possible locations. Meanwhile, she kept us at the station for safety. But as the investigation unfolded, something unexpected happened. A second message came in. This time, it wasn't a video. It was a voice recording. My mother's voice. Shaking. Crying. "Yehani, don't come. Please don't." Then a scream. Then silence. I broke. Everything inside me, every wall I built, every fear I carried, it shattered. Elena held me as I fell apart, whispering that it wasn't my fault, that we would find her, that we weren't alone anymore. Then Officer Reeves stormed into the room. "We found something." Her voice was tight, urgent. "We identified the building. A storage facility outside town. We're sending a team now, but there's more." She placed a printed still image from the video on the table. "You said the threat came 10 years ago. That someone warned you to stay silent. But we analyzed the pressure marks on the paper of the new notes, and something doesn't match." I stared at her. "What do you mean?" "The handwriting. The force applied. The slant. It mimics his, but it's not Daniel's." My stomach twisted. "If it's not his, then whose is it?" Officer Reeves took a slow breath. "Clara's." Everything spun. Elena gasped softly beside me. "That's impossible," I said. She's been dead for 10 years." The detective shook her head. "The note in the book was written by her, years ago." "Yes. But the ones left at your door. The one today. Someone traced her handwriting and replicated it. Someone who wanted you to think Daniel was the one sending the threats." My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. Why would someone do that?" Officer Reeves looked straight into my eyes. "Because Daniel isn't working alone." My mind raced. My chest tightened. Everything I thought I knew began dissolving. "Who?" I whispered. "Who would help him?" The detective looked grim. "We think it's someone close to Clara. Someone who wanted the case buried even more than Daniel did." I felt Elena's hand slide into mine. And then Officer Reeves said the name. And my entire world drained of sound. Everything made sense. Everything connected. The threats. The cover-up. The envelope that appeared 10 years too late. The truth I hid for a decade was never mine alone. Someone else had been hiding it too. Someone who needed Clara gone. And me silent. And when the name left the detective's lips, I realized the truth I'd been burying for years wasn't the truth that would destroy me. It was the truth that would destroy everything I believed about the people I thought I knew. I wish I could say everything ended neatly, that justice swept in like a storm and carried away the monsters hiding in the dark. But real stories don't end neatly. They end with scars, with breaths you learn to take again, with truths that don't heal, you just learn to carry them. I broke my silence because Clara asked me to. Because I refused to let fear write the rest of my life. And now, as the truth finally surfaces, I understand something I didn't before: silence protects no one. And the moment you decide to speak, the world finally starts listening.